Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Nodding. Today I'm gonna explore point density nodes inside Blender cycles. It's actually this guy over here. If I have an object right here and I switch to cycles renders, now we are using Blender cycles render, and I'm gonna save this file real quick. This is a point density exploration 001. And the other day I was looking at Blender cycles, and then I kind of stumbled into I have to turn on these nodes. I saw this guy, point density, and that's actually interesting nodes. It's new for me, but I'm probably a bit behind. Probably this node has been there for a year or more. That's interesting. I don't know what the node does, and I was using it wrong actually, but yeah, I'm gonna show you. So if I Google search, and then I found a few interesting video like this one. So apparently this node can help you. Okay, there's this one also by Blender Diploma. Yeah, these nodes allow you to render out particles as some kind of volume density. And after playing around with it, okay, apparently you can also use vertex points of objects and then render this kind of volume. It's very realistic looking if you tweaking the material properly. It can generate cloud, and then maybe I did play around with it at some point, but I didn't realize it. And yeah, a lot of things, and yeah, and even like this cloud from Blender Stack Exchange. Hey, that's interesting. Clouds always nice to render out in 3D. Yeah, but I was actually using it wrong at first. What I created was something like this monkey right here, just like a colorful looking monkey. It's actually, I'm using like particles around this monkey, and then the particle generates the color to the monkey. I'm probably gonna show it to you right away. So I was using it wrong, like I said. I was playing around with it, and then hey, okay, there's this node. How do I use it? So for this object, this is a default cube. What I did was creating new particles, and we know it that by default the particle will fall. So probably I'm gonna turn off the gravity influence for this particle. So now the particle just kind of spit out to the normal. So if I turn off the normal, now the particle just being generated on the surface and then disappearing, because it only like has a lifetime of 50. So I try that, plug in. So I select the object, which is the cube, and then the particle system, that guy. And there's one option here that's important. The space, the object space needs to be world in order for this to work. And resolution, we can leave it low. Actually, make it really low, like 30. And we have interpolations option here. I haven't looked at it properly. Resolution definitely has effects on the result. Particle age, velocity, speed, and age also matters a lot. With age and speed will give you like kind of black and white, while velocity give more like colorful based on the velocity of the particles. That's also something need to be explored. This video probably is not particularly useful for you. It depends, but I just wanna share it with you. I'm interested with this area, and maybe I look further into the proper way to use point density. So if I plug this in, I don't know what's I'm gonna get. So here I'm already getting something. This is what I was interested the other day. Hey, that's like really nice procedural way to generate texture, you know. This is almost like when I was playing around with dynamic paints. It's kind of like this kind of blotchy kind of effects. This kind of look also you might get it when if you use if you ever use render engine like RenderMan. Sometimes it can produce this kind of blotchy effects when it's rendering, especially when you're like shooting ray with a really um, low sampling, and you get this nice blotchy effects. Even though it's blotchy and pixelated, maybe you can find use for it, you know. I don't know, it's kind of a nice way to randomize objects, and perhaps you can also bake it. Here the color, this is the environment color. If whether it's black or yeah, just sometimes you don't want to use diffuse, depend on what you're doing. Ambient, not ambient is gonna make everything flat. Either you use the world, turn off the world, and here it's got there is a light in the scene, so I'm getting I can actually see the cube. But if I turn off the light, it's gonna be totally black. If you want, instead of using diffuse, you can use emission, so it's like a full color value. Oops, that's backward. Yeah, so this is the result I'm getting, and I was, hey, that's really interesting. And it was generated by the radius of particles. I mean the particles positions that's close to the cube, and this radius also has effects for every points of particles. It's gonna have the same radius, and we can sort of play around with this value. Small value, more like, you know, like an art, like a dot, random dots. You might be also able to use that. I tried it with a if my resolution is too high, especially when recording. Blender might crash because my computer is not that powerful here. 100 maybe not too bad. So you have like more, definitely more resolutions. So now it's still pixelated, but if I increase it like 500 or 1000, it's gonna become like full circle. What interesting, however, is if you use like a low value and in fact, and then you just increase the radius, it's kind of almost like ambient occlusion effects. It's not really ambient occlusion. It's not. It's just blotchy kind of effects. A quick and fast way to produce a little bit of randomness, noise, make the object a little bit dirtier, although it doesn't have any kind of reference to it. It's just a random blotchiness. Maybe it's still adding some kind of look, you know. And if we change it to particle velocity, I believe we're gonna get black because the particle is not moving at all. If I move the particles using turbulence, let's try using turbulence first, force field turbulence. Let's see, without rendering it out, we're just gonna see particles moving. There's a lot actually with Blender particles. There's a lot you can do here with the force. If you use just this force point, and okay, it's being blown away, but I believe this can be a surface as well. There's one force. Texture, maybe not texture. can't remember. Oh, actually, if I'm selecting that surface and then turn on force field, and I turn and make it either to surface or every points, maybe surface, and then increase the flow, and maybe I delete other force for now, we're gonna get an interesting effect. Let's see, surface noise, maybe I should increase the noise strength. Can't see nothing much every point. No, perhaps I need to subdivide this more, maybe adds more particles. Still no effects. Flow 10. Maybe I need to push the particle a little bit, normal, or use a let's turn off that. Use a Brownian and randomize the particles slightly too much, adding damping. All sort of possible way just to control the particles. So obviously, if we're gonna use the point density stuff, we need a little bit of familiarity with particles. The particles should be moving, but maybe not too much. So we're not seeing anything. Let's try the turbulence once more. This particle is not doing anything. Strength, noise, doing nothing. Seed, flow. That's weird. I'm expecting this guy to just move randomly. Maybe subdivide this a little bit. No. Let's delete this force field for now. Subdivide again. Particle system being influenced by turbulence now. Yeah, just a little bit more random. Let's see what we got. See, that's more likely, more like it. Now if I render it frame by frame and check the result, I'm getting almost like a nebula kind of color. I haven't experienced with how much details, or actually not much detail we get from here. It's almost like gassy, kind of gaseous, volumetric kind of effects. Really nice actually. You can definitely use this to generate kind of nebula, right? I think at some point, if the point is too far away or make there too much jump, because I'm jumping around, you're gonna get the color. The color is totally out of control at some point, because this is just looking into particle velocity. It doesn't have particle color yet, and we can also use object vertices. It doesn't take point or vertex color information yet, but maybe Blender 2.8. This is Blender 2.77. We will see. I don't know. Maybe I should use like a developer release of Blender in order to see new features earlier. But that's I find it really nice. Particle speed, particle age give different look. It's very gaseous kind of effects. And this is just a cube. You can use, of course, like the monkey head. Okay, this is a monkey. I want to get the monkey head mesh. Select Suzanne. Now it's become Suzanne. Sometimes I do that and render it out. We're not seeing anything. Maybe because the material needs to be that guy. Not much of detail. You can of course increase the detail, 60 maybe. Yeah, it's looking quite nice. Of course you can subdivide it or maybe do other effects like remesh, blocks. Very voxel kind of looking object. Yeah, that's actually, in fact, that's not the right way to use point density, but just in case you want to use it, give it a try. It's give a nice nebula kind of color. And you can of course use the vector texture coordinate for this guy, UV or auto generated. There's a lot here that you can kind of control. I think mapping also useful. Yeah, I'm currently just adjusting the scale of this auto generated vector for the UV. Let's delete the remesh, and then for this Suzanne, maybe smooth Suzanne and then increase the resolution, and we get our render. It's looking quite nice. There's also something you can do with just pointing out with the geometry. There's also this pointiness. I only found out about this a few weeks ago or something, but that's also really handy to add like a, what do you call it, cavity. Whenever you see part like the edges like that, maybe like armpit or any cavity like in between teeth or area like that, you can use this geometry pointiness to add details. Let's have a look. You can't see anything. Maybe you can see a little bit, but the thing is with a color ramp, you kind of can map. You can add a contrast, kind of like in Photoshop level, probably kind of push that value so it's more contrasty. Now we can see the effects. That's the cavity or pointiness of the objects. This actually you can use in combination with this guy. I think color mixing, I'm not so familiar yet, but mix RGB probably the right one to use. Maybe density is actually more likely. For space, object space, that's a bit weird. Object vertices, no. It's almost like subsurface scattering kind of look, because we are scattering particles on top of this guy. Maybe we don't need texture coordinate. Yeah, all kind of weird effects. Maybe we can increase the effects a little bit. Multiply. Oops, that's very wrong. Mix, add. track, screen. I don't know, one of them probably can give you a nicer looking result. Particle speed. Maybe switch this thing around. Yeah, well, never mind that, but yeah, with a point density you can get that kind of look, but the right way to use point density is of course to use it with a volumetric. So I'm just testing it now. So that guy has a lot of particles there, and we have this cube, can't see anything underneath, so I just that's alright. I will just create a material for this guy. Diffuse PSDF we can delete, and we just need the volume, and we just need to use volume absorption or volume scatter. Plug this into the volume. Let's see what we got when we render it. So we can probably see some kind of volume with a monkey underneath. Maybe we actually don't need the monkey, but with this guy and then point density. Let's see. Okay, maybe with the monkey itself, I will just gonna hide it totally, and just look at the result. Nothing. Let's try. Let's try with a donut torus right here. Gonna scale it. Okay, donut looks like that. Let's get the objects, our torus, and then just object vertices. Plug the density into this guy. I'm expecting to see something. Maybe I did it wrong. Object space, maybe turn it into world. I'm seeing nothing. Maybe I need a light after all. It's like lamp, point light here, and point light over there. Another one just in case. I'm seeing the donut. Actually, I don't want to see the donut. It's I'm gonna hide it. Turn off there. Now we can see something. So that's exactly how you should use the point density. So based on the points of that donut, we can see like a very faded looking donuts. Let's select. I'm selecting the cube, and I can increase the radius, and we have something that's a little bit too big. I can increase the resolutions, but I know I saw one video tutorial. You can use math instead of adding. Add actually will kind of fill up all the volume, so you get like a cube, the actual objects. And what you want to use is math. It's a multiplier, so multiply like 5, not too much, 5, and then now we can see the effects of the point density from the torus. Yeah, but it's just like a, it's kind of like when you use the old Blender internal render and rendering particles as a halo, so you get this kind of soft looking fluffy objects for per points, and you can control the radius right here. So fluffy looking objects 0.5. So that's a point density. And you can, of course, if you are emitting particles from these objects, let's say new particles, particle blah blah blah. Let's use volume and random grid. Grid is interesting because it's like it can create the exact volume of that object. Let's randomize it a little bit. Grid, higher resolutions, and then randomize it a little bit. So that's the particle is filling up the volume of this torus. The higher value you have, more accurate it's going to be. We don't need the normal. We don't need to use the any physics. Turn off gravity. Now back to this guy's material. Selecting for the point density is still the torus, but we're gonna use the particle system of the torus. Let's see what we're gonna get. So it's a more natural looking cloud because we have random particles scattered around the volume of the torus. These we might be able to just turn it into the sun. Strings 150. Give it some color. The particles are not moving, but let's quickly add a force field turbulence. Oh, actually, this particle is pretty much dead. Turn on Newtonian, add a little bit of Brownian and a little bit of damping and drag. Let's have a look. So the particle's moving. Too much. Turn turbulence a little bit smaller. Increase the flow. Yeah, some movement. Particles. And render. The sun actually is too bright. Seems to be too bright. 40? Blue. Maybe make the torus smaller. Actually, make this guy bigger. If you want to see the torus inside it, we turn this guy into just a wire. Just in the 3D view it's a wire, but it will render properly. So yeah, I think the point density needs its own probably book or a lot of video tutorials just to understand it really well. And this is just like this is point density, which is probably, so it's sampling points from objects or particles and then using properties like particle age, particle velocity, those sort of things to generate like a volume. I need to look at this more properly. But with the volume stuff, you can with volume scatter and volume absorption, you can use any kind of 3D texture in for the density, like Musgrave, for example, or Voronoi, maybe Voronoi texture, because this is, we have the factor here. If we plug it into the density, we can maybe, this is the point density, kind of reshaping your cloud objects, and then you want to randomize it a little bit, you can use maybe multiplier, and maybe I can use subtract here and use this guy and get a totally different look. Maybe it's a good idea to use a GPU here. I'm using CPU, and this is a MacBook, old MacBook Pro. But working with volume is a lot of fun. And the advantage of using volume, you can generate things like fire, or this is actually nice looking, kind of a magical kind of effect. Water, this cloud is really beautiful. That's amazing. I'm so behind with this kind of point density stuff. That's actually my old blog post right there. I wasn't using Blender Cycles. It was a while back ago using Blender internal render. I'm interested in finding out how to generate like a from a normal texture, maybe like a scan of something, and then turn it into point cloud, and then rendering it out using this method. Maybe soon, when we have like a point color informations, it's gonna be much more interesting. We get like a really detailed result, I guess. Okay, so yeah, there you go. I guess nothing much on this video, just sharing my interest with the point density node for Blender Cycles. I guess, yeah, if you want to leave comments, give me some suggestion or on when I should look and what I should do. But when we later on, if you actually start using Sverchok or animation nodes, and then you can generate points, right? That's when things started to get interesting. Wonder if I should do it now. Maybe I should. Yeah, so let's try it anyway. Sverchok. I'll use Sverchok. Sverchok random vector. It's my favorite. Viewer draw. Sverchok vertices. How many? 73. So this guy generate points, right? And you can use points for this guy, which is nice. Even though the points, we don't have scatter points yet with Sverchok, you can kind of fake it, I think. Let's use vector math and scale it. Vector cell noise vector, multiply scalar. That's probably what we need. That kind of look. You can add noise, whatever. At the moment, this is just still like a Sverchok kind of ghosted object. We can use MK2, plug the vertex in. That's become a real objects. Turn off the ghost. This is a real objects. It's a single mesh. random points. I like using points like this. You can use particles, of course. This can be useful as well. Because you can control it using noise, vector noise, or randomize input vertices. All sort of cool stuff. Let's see. Randomize, and you can quickly create like a maybe galaxy or star. Let's have a look. The output is called alpha 0. So this is our cube. Back to cycles. Let's grab alpha and then object vertices, and you can actually emit particles here and get more points. I didn't plan to do this, but we will see the result. Alpha, world space, radius, linear. Okay, render. We don't need the Voronoi stuff. Oops, oh yeah. Blender might crash. Volume scatter. It's color is just white. It's okay. If like a fluffy looking cloud, maybe turn resolution back to 40 or something. It's gonna be a lot faster. Oh yeah, that's quite nice. What else we can do? Maybe emit some particles from this guy. New particles emitted from every vertices randomly, normal, random rotations, random. Have a look. Okay, it's particles falling down. That could be a nice effect actually, I don't know. Yeah, there must be a turbulence. No, there is no turbulence here, just particles falling down of the gravity. Maybe turn off gravity and use turbulence. When Blender particles become like node based, it's gonna be so interesting. I should kind of looking forward to that. This is particles and start and maybe 5. Let's not to be too crazy with the number. Particle being pushed by turbulence. I wonder what's the result's gonna be. Particle system radius blah blah blah. Okay, render. It's just more cloud, but it's a points emitting this cloud. And what's cool about it is you can increase this cube, and you can increase the resolution anytime. You have this really fast volumetric render. You don't get this quite easily using other renderer, I don't think. I don't know. I think my computer is pretty slow. Really, if you use like a latest computer, it's gonna be so fast to render. Even using CPU. At the moment, I don't think we have much control for the radius. It's just a same radius for each point. We can use particle color and then plug in the color to there. Maybe that's more interesting. Oh, there you go. Particle velocity. The actual density itself is from the radius, so just the color itself is kind of new. If we increase the radius, maybe you get a colorful cloud. Maybe make the radius, make the resolution really small. That color is not particularly beautiful because it's just the velocity of particle. I don't know. Color source, particle speed. With particle speed, maybe we get a more interesting look. Particle age. Maybe as the particle age, it become brighter. Probably. Try emit more particles. Back to Sverchok. Let's stop this. Back to Sverchok and increase the count to 1000. And now emit more particles from each vertices. Emit particles. Random use modifier stack 10,000. Let's push this. Particle being pushed by the turbulence force. And I think the turbulence need to be a lot bigger. Flow, noise. Usually with turbulence we started to see an interesting pattern. I have another turbulence right here. Because particle is simulations, it's a really, it takes some experience to control this particle to create a more interesting looking like a structure or form. But let's just render this out. Back to this guy. I wonder if we use the volume effects to with the particles as well. It's kind of like icy looking. Particle age, velocity. If we don't have the color, increase the resolution, reduce the radius. Kind of like a puff kind of look. I think with the point density, we also don't have motion blur yet. But once we have motion blur, maybe we can have like more like a wispy kind of look. There's a lot in there's a lot of kind of concepts to put into. your mind in order for this to work. Yeah, but I think that's, I guess, pretty much it. I can do a little bit more with virtual, but I think just play around with it, like generating points for you to be used as point density, and then creating like a fluffy structure. I guess that's the main point. You probably, some of you probably already use point density for a while. I still think this is still like a work in progress being developed, but you already can do some interesting looking render. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna study this point density a little bit more, and hopefully, even though the live noding is pretty short, half hour, 1 hour, sometimes even shorter, but I try to give you some of my sharing my experience, even my like a learning experience on certain topic. Yeah, so I guess that's it for this live noding. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for tuning in.